All right. Well, we we get a lot of questions about this. We have a lot of people requesting to see how an automower is installed, what goes into it. Um, so we tried to come up with a couple ways to do this. Just going out in the yard and showing you it's tough because you know not every yard, not every opportunity you have to record something is going to give you every possible scenario. So what we're going to do here is we're going to try to break this up into a couple different videos and just show you some of the things that we've ran into, or just give you an idea of what's out there and what you will run into and how to handle it. So as you can see on our board here, we got a pretty basic setup of what you would find here in the United States for a yard. You can see we got the driveway here, the house, little sidewalk, little patio deck, pool out in the backyard, little garden area, shed over here. Got our flower beds randomly, some trees, and then of course if you've ever been to any kind of an automower training or anything and you've never heard of mentioning of a volcano in the backyard, well then obviously you weren't paying attention. So gotta have the volcano in the backyard there anytime you're talking about running wire for an automower. Just wouldn't be right without it. So, all right, well, we'll get right into this here. The very first thing you want to do, of course, is figure out where you're going to put the charging station for the automower. And the number one rule of thumb that you should try to go by is to put it in a centralized location. So now, with this setup here, we're going to be mowing all this over here, all this back here, and on this side, out front here. This is going to come down to really where you have an electrical outlet that you'll be able to plug the charging station in at, and how close you can have it to being in the center or in the middle of your property there. Give it the best chance at working efficiently. So for one like this, I mean, you could go right here. Wouldn't be bad. Depends on the layout of your yard. If you get it over this way, that's even better, because the majority of your yard you're going to be mowing is over here onto this side and around here. But, again, it all depends. If you don't have any outlets over here, then, you got one here. You could use the wire that comes, the low voltage cable that comes with the machine, or you could order the upgraded one. It's a little bit longer. Plug it in here and run the whole way under your deck or whatever to get over here to this side, or just plug it in here, if need be. If you got a pool here, then there's a very good possibility that you've got some kind of electric there for your pool filters and stuff like that. So if you had some kind of like a little deck there around your pool, you could stick it right underneath there. Or if this was a deck here, again, you can stick it underneath there, or if this is a ground level, right next to it. But either way, so just to make it easy, we're going to put our charging station right here. So we got the charging station there, and then we've got to run our perimeter wire, which is what I always start out with. The perimeter wire would be the wire that goes the whole way around the outside of the working area. So on this particular layout, what we're going to do is, let me find a different color here that we haven't used yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to run our perimeter wire. Now, when we run this, we'll just start out, we'll go this way. We'll come around the house here, around the edge of the driveway, down to the road, and then this part here is really easy. We'll follow the property line, up and around. back down by the road. Back up the driveway to the sidewalk and back around the house and patio and back into the charging station. So we've got our perimeter wire. We've got that ran the whole way around. That's the easiest part. Now, the other part you have to decide here is, what do you want to have an island around? Now, for just to give you an idea of how this works, I drew the perimeter wire around there, but you know, if you've never done this before, it's easier for me to show it to you this way than the way I would actually, you know, plan this out in my head and lay it out. And as we go through all this, you'll see what I'm talking about. But you can see in the purple here, we've got our perimeter wire the whole way around it. You have to have that. No matter what, you have got to have that. You know, unless you've got a fence around your entire yard and your property and you're just going to let it run into everything and anything and hope that it works out for the best. But there's just no other way around it. You're going to have to run a perimeter wire. So we start with the perimeter wire. We got it around there. This means the mower has a boundary now. It knows where it can go, where it can't go. You know, it can go out here to the perimeter wire. It'll register through the sensors, back up, turn around, go a different direction. Same way up here at the road, the driveway. It won't go across the driveway. And speaking of the driveway, this is something here you could do if you wanted to. You know, there you could have just came down here and crossed over if need be. But again, we'll get into this kind of stuff later on. This is the simplest layout here that you can do, just going around all that stuff. So now you can see with this perimeter wire around here, we have all these other objects here, like the shed, the pool, the garden, you know, the trees, the volcano, the flower beds. The next thing you want to do is you want to figure out what out of all those objects you want to create an island around so that the mower doesn't go in them. Like your garden, of course, you know, if you don't have any kind of a border around your garden, you know, like no landscaping ties or a little fence or anything like that, and this is just grass going in the dirt, that mower's going to come out of there and it's going to be mowing around. It's just going to buzz right through there. There goes your carrots, your lettuce, your tomatoes, whatever else you got in there. It's going to mow them down. So you could either build your own, you know, fence or border around here tall enough that the automower could come up to it, bump into it, back up, and go a different direction. Or what you could do is bring your wire in from your perimeter and create an island around this. And the way you would do that is you would come in from your perimeter wire and you go around the object, and then you go back out to your perimeter wire, and then you make sure we got the line drawn there, but you don't want this wire to be connecting here because it'll cancel out that island. So you leave a small gap right there between these two wires, but most of the time what you want to do is just overlap them, especially if you're using stakes. You can put them right down with the same stake, so they're right over top of each other. What you don't want to do is when you come in, you don't want to come in, go around your object, and then cross over the wire and back out. You don't want to do that because that will reverse the signal of your loop system, and it won't work at all then. So you want to have this where you come in, go around the garden, back out, and this wire here, there is no wire in between there. You can see that's open right there. So we got an island around the garden. Swimming pool, again, you know, that would be something where you could decide if you want to just let it bounce into it and go off in another direction or how. Same way with the shed. A lot of people, when it comes to the sheds, they usually let them run into them if they're down at ground level, if there's nowhere for the mower to get caught. But this one here, one nice thing about this one, the way we drew this up here is this one here, because it's so close to this perimeter wire, you're not going to use a whole lot more wire. So you could just come in there, go around it, and then you won't have to worry about it. Then we'll open this gap up here. The pole, again, because it's so close to the house, I would go around it, and just to be safe. Especially if this is an above ground pole, you wouldn't have to worry about, you know, anything. But if that's an in-ground pole, then your mower could very easily just go skating right on in there, and it's done for. It's toast. You know. Then we come out to the trees. Trees are always a just a random thing, you know. It's always up to the homeowner what they want to do there. It's not going to hurt the mower if it goes up, nudges into it, backs up, and goes a different direction. So if you've got one that would be like, say, here out in the middle of the yard, and, you know, you're going to have to come way in from your perimeter wire to get to it, and there's no roots that are really sticking up out of the ground for the mower to get hung up on, I'd just say let it run into it. Let it run into it and go a different direction on its own then. But, you know, again, if the roots are popped up out of the ground real far and the mower's going to run over them and get hung up on them and constantly be sending you error messages, then you're going to want to put an island around it. Or like we talked about with the garden, you know, maybe some landscaping ties or something, fill it with mulch, some kind of a border around there so you don't have to run the wire in so far. So, you know, like these trees down here, close to the perimeter, this one here, that one, pretty much. If you're that close, you know, it wouldn't hurt. But the other thing is, if you've got roots that you can see are starting to come up, you know, to the top of the soil, it would be a good idea to put that island around there, you know, just for future growth, you know, to keep it from going in there and getting stuck. But at the same time, you got to watch those tree roots, because if it's something that's already up above the ground, you want to stay a good ways back, because you don't want to be running a wire like right over top of those roots that you know are going to become more and more exposed over time, and have your wire then, you know, sticking up out of the ground where the mower is going to run up over it and get it caught in the blade. So all little things there you got to consider. But trees are a tough one. There's no right or wrong way to do it. You know, you just got to kind of adjust to whatever you're dealing with as you go. You know, some trees, pine trees especially, if you got a pine tree and, you know, the branches are hanging way down to the ground, you're going to want to put an island the whole way around that thing. You know, you don't want the mower going in under the pine tree and getting stuck in there, or just wasting time screwing around there trying to find its way back out and getting all scraped up and everything. So either you trim the branches way up on the pine tree so that the mower can go in under there and do its thing. But, you know, what's really the point? Because under a pine tree, there's no grass growing. It's nothing but pine needles under there anyway. So with the pine trees, I recommend just doing an island around them, a big one. Keep it out of there. That's always the easiest thing to do with them. Now with, you know, like a maple tree or something like that, like I said, it's all going to depend on the root system and how effectively the mower can mow around it as to whether or not you got to island it off. So what you want to do here when you're starting out doing this, if you know, you're set on getting the Automower, whether you're going to install it yourself or you're a dealer going out to do this, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go out and you're going to measure around all of this stuff where you're running this wire. You know, you're going to talk to the customer, or if it's, you know, you the customer doing it yourself, you're going to figure out where you want to put an island around and where you don't, and then you're going to measure all of this. The best thing to do, go out there and walk it with a measuring wheel. Measure how many feet of wire you're going to need, and then make sure to get more than that, because you're always going to need more. So you don't want to go onto like Google Maps or somewhere like that and start dropping, you know, your little anchor and trying to measure lines and saying, oh, well, you know, the property's only this big, and, you know, I've got from here to here is this long. It doesn't work. It does not work. I don't care what app you're using. I don't care what map you're using. It doesn't work. You're not going to be able to see what you got to do around these trees or how big of an area you need to cover the roots if you got to go around the roots of this tree. You're not going to be able to tell, exactly if you're, on this property line or if you're in a neighbor's yard. And if you can't tell that, then you're not going to be able to get an accurate distance from, this corner over to this corner. It just doesn't work. And if you get an area or, you have a property where there's a whole bunch of trees together, you don't know what's under them. There could be like a, kid's swing center there. There could be a garden under there. You have no idea. So the best way to do it, just go out and measure it with a measuring wheel. Go around everything you're going to put an island around, add up your totals, and then order your wire accordingly. So this one here, we would be doing the perimeter. We'd be doing the, we'd be doing the islands around the garden, swimming pool, the shed, and then we'll come in here at the bottom. We'll make an island around this flower bed because we'll put some mulch down there. We don't want it running through that. We'll do the same thing here on this one. And then get this going back out. So that entire purple line there, we want to measure that up. And that's going to be the amount of wire we're going to need. Excuse me. So once we have that, then we can start laying everything out. Now, when I do this, I usually use a wire installing machine and I'm burring it under the ground, as I go. But it doesn't matter if you're staking it or you're burring it. The biggest thing you want to do, you want to keep in mind is you want as few splices and breaks and connections in this wire as possible. So this is why it's always good to have this planned out, draw it up, how you're going to lay out your wire going around your property. So you can start this charging station here and you can come out and you got to go around the swimming pool, back out, then keep going here, then back go into the shed, around the shed, back out, do all this. Don't just go out there and run your wire the whole way around the property and then come back and say, okay, well, I'm going to run a wire from here and around there and back out. So I'm going to cut the perimeter wire that I already had there, and now I'm going to just splice the end of this wire and this wire in there. Then you've got two connections. You got two weak spots in that loop now, where you could have a problem where you wouldn't have had that possibility before. And yeah, I mean, you can use the weatherproof connectors and you can do whatever you want, but at the same time, it's still not as good as that solid wire would have been. You want to have this planned out. You don't want to be cutting the wire any more than you have to. And if you don't get a big enough spool to do this all in one shot, which is most of the time is pretty unlikely, you could already figure on having a connector or two there just because you got to connect the ends of your spools together. So keep that in mind. You don't want to keep having, at every island, you don't want to have some kind of connection there that if you have a no loop signal, you're running around digging all them up because you're not sure which one's which and where your problem's at. So that's pretty much the basics for the perimeter wire. Want to lay out like this. Pretty standard, pretty simple to understand that part. Then as I was saying about, you would get into the spots where you have the islands and stuff. You want to have them figured out. If you have to come back then because like out here at one of these trees, okay, you're having this problem, you need to put an island out there, then okay, you've got everything done, then you're pretty much going to have to run the wire in, do your island, and cut this back here and put your two splices in. But you're going to have it narrowed down to where it's only here and there, not just randomly everywhere. So the other thing that I recommend, if you do have to do that, if you do have to put a splice anywhere in your wire, always be thinking ahead, plan for the future. So what I mean by that is, let's say, um, you had to, you took the wire, you went the whole way around everything, and you get over into like this area here, and you run out of wire on that spool. So now you're going to start your second spool of wire, and you need to splice the two ends together. So what you should do, or what I would try to do, is find some kind of a landmark. Like if you're getting to here and you're out of wire, go back here to where the volcano's at, and make your splice there. That way you have some kind of a landmark where you know the connection was at. So if you do have a problem in your loop signal, okay, I had a connector here. Maybe something happened there where the wire got pulled out, or it's just corroded or rusted or whatever. So you can go right there to it and check it. Like the corner of the house, the corner of the driveway, the sidewalk. If there's a telephone pole in the front yard, something like that. Just something where you can just eyeball it then and say, okay, yeah, right out here at the corner of my garden, I had a connection there. So you're not just ripping up wire and everything else when you have a no loop message. Make it easy on yourself. Think ahead. So then the next thing you want to do after you've got all of this figured out with your perimeter wire and your islands and all your wire laid there, what I do is I come back then and I run my guide wires. Now this all depends on what model mower you have. The lower end ones you only get one guide wire. The 430Xs you get two guide wires. 450Xs you get three guide wires. Some of the older ones had two guide wires. I think the 230 and the 220 might have had two guide wires. So what a guide wire is a guide wire is kind of like a shortcut. If your mower's mowing over here in this area and the battery starts to get low and it's got to find its way back to the charging station, if you have a guide wire out here in this area, then it can just hop on that guide wire and it can just take a straight shot on that guide wire back to the charging station. And what that means is the faster time back to the charging station, the faster you can get charged and be back out to work. Improves the efficiency of the whole operation. Same way if it's down here in this corner and you've got a guide wire out here, instead of it, just running around searching on its own, trying to find the signal from the charging station, or hopping on the signal from the perimeter wire and following the perimeter wire the whole way around, you can hop on that guide wire and just run right back to the charging station. So, boy, I don't know. I guess this isn't that terrible of a yard. We could just, let's just say we got a 430X here, and we got the two guide wires. So of course you're going to want to run one down here to this corner, because that's a little tougher to get out of. I always try to split the yard up when I do guide wires the best I can, and you'll understand why I say that here in a little while. We'll explain how that helps you, even if you don't feel that you need the guide wires, why it's always a good idea to have them. So when you're running a guide wire, you want to try not to cross over anywhere where you have wires going into an island. That's considered part of your perimeter wire, so you don't want to cross over your perimeter wire anywhere. So you wouldn't want to come out here and just run right through here to get over to here with your guide wire. You'd want to come out of your charging station, go out around here, and you could go right here to this flower bed island and tie into it, or you can come down here to the edge, or over here on the side perimeter wire, wherever you feel like going. It doesn't have to be all the way down to this corner. We'll just make ours come out here, and we'll just tie in here just for the time being. Well, that's the way we'll leave it up at. So then the second one, we want to try to get the most coverage as possible out of this guide wire. So we'll come out of here and we'll loop around, go out around there, and then we will come through here and we'll just go right to here. That really cuts everything in half and gives us a pretty good signal to follow, a pretty good signal to find the whole out throughout that area. So if the mower's over in here, it can pick up on it. You know, if it's down in here, it could pick up on it. Out in here, pick up on it, follow it home. You know, no matter where it's at out here, it's going to be able to jump on that guide wire and go back. So now, the importance of guide wires, you know, let's say this, we're going to, you know, originally I was saying, let's say this is a 430X, so we'd have the two guide wires, but if this was a 450X, I would run that third guide wire too. You know, what I would do is I would bring this one here, you know, a little bit closer here and then into this, and I would take the third one and go out around here, but I would go over in here somewhere with it. And the reason I would do that is because if you do have a problem with your loop signal, you're getting that message saying, you know, no loop. What you could do then is you could start switching your wires around here on the back of the charging station. And this is going to help you narrow down where your problem is at. So let's call this guide 1 and this guide 2. So if you put guide 1 over here for the perimeter wire on this side on the back of the charging station, then it's going to eliminate all of this stuff over here. And this loop right in here from the guide wire to this part of the perimeter wire and back up around is going to be your new loop. So if you've got a green light when you do that, you know this whole area right here is good. All of this around your shed, the corner of the house, the driveway, from this charging station down here to where your guide wire ties in and back around. That whole loop right there is good. You know that the light's green. If the light is flashing blue, then you know your problem's in this area. So you know it's not the guide wire. So you've got, you know, here around your pool, down around here to there. That's where you're going to look for your break in your wire. If you would do guide wire 1 and then you would hook up, you know, if this was a 450X and we had the third guide wire going out here, and you had guide 1 on this side for your perimeter wire and guide wire 3 on this side, then it would be guide 1 and then the whole part of your perimeter wire, I don't know what that is there, the whole part of your perimeter wire from right here and out around the garden, all this back over here to where your third guide wire is at, and then back to the charging station. That whole part of your loop, if that was green, that's all good. If it's flashing blue, then you know your brake is somewhere in that area there. And you could start looking through there, you know, of course go to the obvious spots. If you had any splices, like I was saying, always start with them. But it'd be the same thing over here. You take guide 2 and you switch it over with the perimeter wire on this side. So then you're going to have everything coming around your house down here, this purple wire, to where your guide ties in and back out the guide. That'll create that will make that one loop. Your light's green, it's good. If it's flashing blue, then your brake is somewhere in this purple wire here, your perimeter wire, between the charging station and where your guide wire ties in. And if we had guide wire 3, let's just run guide wire 3 out there so you can understand what I'm talking about better. Let's say guide wire 3 goes right here. So we just converted this to a 450X. We got 3 guide wires. So you could have your charging station hooked up with guide wire 2 as one of the perimeter wires and guide wire 3 as one of the perimeter wires. And then you will know that this whole area of perimeter wire right here, if your charging station light turns green, it's all good. If it's flashing blue, then your brake is somewhere in this area. So that's how you help break that stuff up and figure out where your bad spots in your wire are at. And that's why guide wires are definitely helpful, whether you need them or not. So let's go back here to just being a 430X again with only 2 guide wires. So, I was saying that the guide wires will help you get back to the charging station faster. The other thing that the guide wires do is they give you another remote start possibility. So you could set this Automower, a certain percentage of the times that it would come out and it would go down guide wire 1, 150 feet, and then it would just drop off of there and it would start mowing. Same thing guide wire 2, like 25% of the time, it's going to go out guide wire 2 300 feet, and then it's going to start mowing right there where it's at. Of course, you can do that with the perimeter wire too. It can follow the left perimeter wire, right perimeter wire, go, 200 feet, 300 feet, whatever, start mowing. And that's a good way to push the mower, especially when it's new. If you set that up, it helps it get out to all these areas faster and learn the yard faster. You could wait for it to use GPS and bounce all around everything and figure it out and map it out itself. But it's a little easier if you set it up that way, that you could have your 5 different areas where it's going to start at. So you have, like, say, one is going to be following the perimeter wire down to here, and it's going to start here. The next one would be coming over here and starting, down here in this corner, of course. And then you could have it go out the perimeter wire so far, start mowing, do the perimeter wire on this side and start mowing, and then your next one could be with it just dropping out of the charging station and randomly mowing back in here by itself. And these areas down in here, in these corners here, these are the ones that you use that remote start on the guide wires or the perimeter wires to get the mower down in there, so it learns them the fastest, because it's going to have no problems picking up this. It's going to map that out because that's wide open there. It's going to be back and forth across that so many times, just randomly on its own, that it'll have that mapped out in no time at all. The places that take the longest to get mapped out are areas like this right here, between the house and the pool, over here between your driveway and your shed, up here between the perimeter and the garden, sometimes between like the trees and the property line, and the flower bed and the road there. There's tight spots where it's between there, and it comes and it hits just wrong, and it bumps the perimeter wire, and it backs up, goes to, again, it hits the perimeter wire, and next thing you know, it's coming back out of here and it's over in here, and it never made it through there. So you force it to start down in here, better chance of it, going down in there and starting to mow and getting that mapped out faster. So that's pretty much the basics of it. I think that's probably a good spot to stop. I don't want to jam too much into here and just keep going and going and going and end up losing people on this. So this is a look at what happens, when you go to install a mower. So number one is do some kind of a drawing like this. Get an idea of what you're working with, or just at least map it out in your head if you can do that. And then number two, figure out what objects you're going to put islands around that for sure you want to put islands around. And then number three is go out after you figure out where you want to put your charging station and start measuring. Take a measuring wheel and just go around everything so you know how much wire you're going to need. And this is important because, these install kits only come with so much wire. You can't just go out there and say, okay, I'm buying a 450X, so all I'm going to need is a large install kit. That might work in Europe, but that does not work over here in the United States. The very first Automower I ever installed was a 450X, and it was part of a giveaway, part of a contest that Husqvarna ran. And they sent us the 450X and one large install kit, which for those of you that don't know, only comes with 400 meters of wire. And we were supposed to go install this for the winner of the contest. And that 400 meters of wire did not go very far at all. Now, you know, if you read into the owner's manuals and stuff on these things, they tell you that they recommend not going above 800 meters of wire for your loop. So every now and then you can, depending on the situation, but still, they're saying it's good at least up until 800 meters of wire. That large install kit's only got half of that. So this is why you need to measure and figure out how much wire you're going to need. The other reason why it's important to measure is because if you do end up with like a bunch of these trees that you were thinking, yeah, I'm going to put islands around them. Once you get that measurement, you realize, holy crap, you know, I'm going to need like 1,500 meters of wire. Well, then you're probably going to come up with a different way to handle these trees, you know, putting a border around them or something, or maybe you want to put a border around your shed. You're going to cut out wire where you don't necessarily have to use it, just to save on that. The less wire you use, the stronger your signal is going to be going through every one of these wires on here. So keep that in mind. But yeah, again, that's the important reason why you want to go out there and actually measure the wire yourself. That 450X that I was just talking about that was part of a giveaway, I believe we ended up using 2 large install kits and 1 medium install kit on that install. So yeah, it's deceiving. Don't just don't assume that, okay, well, I bought this mower and this is the kit that I need and that's all and I'll be good to go. You know, measure it out and then do your conversion. You know, of course, you'll probably be measuring in feet. So if you don't know how to do that, look it up online. It's very easy to convert meters to feet. So you can buy the rolls of wire and I think it's 150 meter spools, 500 meter spools, and 800 meter spools. So you know, plenty of options there. The other thing that you're going to need if you're installing it yourself is you are going to need a ton of staples. That's the little black plastic spikes that you use to put the wire down. Yeah, what they send you in one kit is never enough. I don't care how manicured your yard is, you're always going to need more. You know, when it comes to doing this, what I would do if I was doing it myself and I absolutely had to stake this down, what I like to do is I would go around and I would take a weed eater and I would trim down, you know, trim this grass down very, very, very low the whole way around the path of where I was going. And I used to actually do this before I got the wire installing machine and I had a helper that would come out and help me with it. I would go around here with the trimmer and I would trim the grass way down. So one, it was easier to get the wire down closer to the soil to stake it down and not have to worry about it, you know, being raised up once the grass was cut. And number two, I could go around and do that and he could start just following my path and putting wire down, you know, and then I could come back and I would start out and go in the other direction. So it worked out great that way. But yeah, you get that grass cut down real low and you get your wire tucked down in against the soil. So it's not going to go anywhere then. And you never know what you're going to find. You know, if your grass is already like this tall and you're going out there and you're trying to put that wire down and it's just laying on top of the grass, as soon as that grass is cut, you're going to have a loose wavy wire. Your mower's going to come along and just snag it up in the blade and it's going to be done for. It's happened, you know, so many times I've seen it from customers and they want to call us out there to fix it up. And it's something so simple, but you know, just weren't planning ahead. So you get the wire put down there. It's always a good thing, you know, as you're going along, if you are staking it down, you know, take and just brush the grass, brush the wire down into the grass. It sets down in there nicer. Even if you are using the wire installer machine, you know, and you buzz around here and you do all this stuff, when you go into an island, you know, you can take the wire machine, you go in around. When you're coming back out, I wouldn't even try running that wire machine through there again and trying to get that wire buried real close to the other one. You're just going to end up cutting it up. You know, it's not worth the hassle. Just when you're coming back out, shut the machine off, unspool some wire, roll the machine out there manually, and go back, find your trench from where you ran the wire in there at, and just stake the wire down on top of that right there, and start your machine up, start going again. There's nothing worse than running all this wire and then getting back to the charging station and plugging the thing on, plugging the thing in and turning it on and having a flashing blue light. And I guarantee you, if you try to run that wire machine right next to the wire that you ran going into an island, that's going to be where one of your problems is at. You'll probably have multiple spots where you cut it. The wire machine has a reciprocating blade, and it knows no mercy. It just will pound through anything. It'll jump off a rock and tree roots every once in a while, but that wire, it'll slice right through it in a heartbeat. So, hope I made this as as easy to follow as possible here, and you guys can understand some of that. Now, like I said, this is pretty mild here. This would be an easy layout and job to do, especially compared to some of these other ones that I've gotten into. But this is pretty basic, here in the United States. Again, as I said, most of us have either some kind of little small garden or a pool or shed or maybe a swing set. Most of us have a flower bed or two, or a couple of trees or bushes or hedgerows. So this is the basics here, getting started out. Move into how you handle with like a dog fence or something like that, and some other videos we'll do later on. Take a look at it. There it is. Be sure to leave any questions or suggestions in the comments, and let us know what you think. Anything you would like to see as far as these installations, be sure to let us know, because like I say, we're going to try to put a few more videos together here to show some more in-depth stuff, and just keep going through this to help everybody understand what's involved here.